for Star Trek 3, 4, and 5. So in other words, they negotiated ahead for films happening in the future, so that they didn't run into the same problem they had with Kirstie Alley. And based on that, I did get excited about the future prospect of this character and what plot line they might choose to pursue, especially the idea that she got Spock through Ponfar and that there might be some offspring in the future. I thought that was pretty thrilling, downright thrilling to think of in the Star Trek canon.
What a great possibility.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
And then to have it so dashed. Do you know, in the beginning of Star Trek 4, it was in the script, and Harv Bennett, the classy producer of the film, sent me a telegram. He was a telegram guy. He sent me a telegram when I was cast, and he sent me a telegram at the beginning of shooting, and I did receive a telegram just before shooting Star Trek 4. Congrats, something about joining another voyage with us, and don't forget to bring along the obstetrician. And then, and it was in the script. I think there was some reference to it in the script in the beginning, in those few lines that I shared with Kirk. And then it was gone. And then it was gone from the script. And so David, rather than kind of riff or imagine in my mind what might have happened, I had to kind of let it go. You know what I mean? It didn't do me any good to sort of torture myself with ways this might have happened or gone down or unfolded when it wasn't going to be going down. It wasn't going to be happening. It's fun to talk about it, I suppose, but I had to kind of let go because at the time it didn't. I mean, it hurt a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll be honest about that. It's like, but at this, by the same token, when it happened, I also recognized, I read the script and I said, wow, there's only so much room for everybody in a story. And I was tickled pink, just from my point of view, that the other cast members, George and Jimmy and Walter and Nichelle and so forth and Dee, I felt like it was a more ensemble storyline, without too much focus on, just Leonard and say Kirk or Bill.
Right.
I felt that the storyline was more evenly distributed amongst the cast, and I thought that's good for them, and it's a good story. It's a really tight film, simple message. The sense of humor was back in the storytelling, and the lovely chemistry between the cast members, I thought was well executed in that movie. So.
But you could have actually, they blew an opportunity. They've never integrated any new people into it in the original cast.
Yeah.
And you could have, and your offspring, and you could have really added to the
absolutely
to the legend or whatever.
But that's the difference between the person who receives the script in the mail and the one who wrote it. The one who wrote it calls the shots. Yeah. I was saying earlier, guys, I think I was so lucky to have a profession at all. Not very ambitious, and if you were the most powerful person at a party that I happened to have the good fortune to attend in Hollywood, I would avoid you like the plague.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't very good at asking for anything. I never knocked on a door where I wasn't expected, and it wasn't confidence, and it wasn't ego. It was actually a lack of confidence. Because if you put your hand out and you say to somebody, call me, I'm really good, you better live up, right? And I just didn't have those kind of balls, so to speak. So the fact that I had any success whatsoever, that I worked regularly enough for 18 years to not have to work at any other profession, is mind-boggling to me. And I do wonder now, looking back, God, what would have happened had you knocked on a door or two? Or had you called your agents and insisted they get you a meeting on a particular project that you heard through the wire, had a role that you might be right for? I don't know. I can't look back with regret. It's just how I'm wired. Even as a real estate agent, I cringe at self-promotion. Cringe. You will not see my face on a rider, on a sign, on the sign itself, on a billboard, and social media. I'm repelled by it. Not on a park bench, not on a grocery cart. No, it's not happening. So I work by word of mouth, just referral only type of thing. And so my sphere of influence in my business is probably lesser than a lot of the other agents who buy zip codes and they buy lead generating systems, and they're constantly pummeling their network with a pumpkin at Halloween and a holiday greeting at the holiday time. And I'm like, oh my God, it's all too much. It's all too much. There were actors that used to like drop off cupcakes at casting houses, and I'm like, oh, for Christ's sake, I'm not doing it. No. So with all that resistance and unwillingness to play that game, I guess I did pretty well. And that Star Trek ever happened to me by my measurement was a miracle. Just a lovely little miracle. And you can tell I'm not the stoic, serious type. So that I was cast in that kind of a role is also a bit of a left curve. I wondered sometimes is the universe just being cruel? because stoicism is just it's I'm the antithesis of that. So it was a challenge to go to work and to be this contained and controlled character and feel like I was nailing it. I didn't kind of go, whoa, yeah, you got that, Curtis. I was very anxious the whole time we were shooting, and I said to Mr. Nimoy the first day, I said, you seem to think I know what I'm doing, but I really don't. And so I would be grateful that, if you help me out. And he said, Robin, I'll take you every step of the way, and I won't leave you out on that limb dangling there without a safety net. And I said, okay, good. I said, because this whole Vulcan thing, it's a mystery. It's a mystery.
Well, I think we can honestly say you portrayed the confidence very well, and you're.
Thank you. Thank you, Eileen. Now, I promise I'm not fishing for a compliment.
No, but you
I've
did.
got a question.
Yeah, sure.
So when you walked in yesterday and saw this, what did it flash back immediately?
Oh, well, I was never on this set. I didn't work on this set in the film.
This same
But
set.
no, Mario. Yeah, it's so cool. I was saying to the earlier group, I'm a fan of film, right? And I'm a fan of anyone striving for excellence in whatever evocation or vocation they're pursuing. I mean, the Olympics just get me all emotional, and someone taking center stage and singing the Star Spangled Banner gets my heart going. Marching bands get my heart going. Athletes get I get very excited about that sort of stuff. I did the tour with Ray yesterday, and I just love the way. I forget. I mean, he was describing many things. Who's done the tour and who hasn't? I don't think any of you've done it. Well, like the ways that, the little trickery, the way they create magic. The things that aren't real but look real on film. I love all that stuff. I used to worry that if I understood too much what was unfolding behind the camera, I would never, or in front of the camera. How Hollywood tricks work, that it would spoil movies for me. I'm not crazy about too much of the special effects. I prefer human drama, but nevertheless, film is endlessly fascinating to me, and it's magic. I go to the movies and I have a big thing of popcorn and my drink, and I get so excited. It's honestly like a moon landing every time for me. I'm just a very respectful theater goer, whether it's live or filmed, and I want everybody who's striving to tell me a story to win. I want them to perform well. I want them to hit all their notes and not miss a dance step, and I don't even know where I was going with this answer, Mario, except that, yeah, I walked in here and it definitely, it moves me. It moves me deeply. And I respect that somebody took all the time to build this and to recreate it and to make it as all, as representative of what really existed as possible. It's so cool. Yeah, no, it's fabulous, and it's what brings us together. This is an excuse for us to band together.
What was it like working with Nimoy? I mean, I've read stories where him and Kurt would joke around off set and stuff. Were they really like that when the filming wasn't happening?
Not so much. Not so much, to be honest. Star Trek 3, that was a big transition for Leonard Nimoy, because he was now coming from out in front of the camera and going behind the camera and taking on a leadership role with his colleagues. And And I also think he was very mindful and the perfect candidate, really, to kind of handle the different energies, if you will, or factions. You know, there was the supporting cast that he knew well, and everybody was, you know, in their lane and knew what they were doing. He had to manage them, and he had to then bring Bill's energy into it, and he's his own faction, and you know, like a comet. And then there's folks like me, newcomers, a little more green and new to the family. And then there's Christopher Lloyd, seasoned performer, but also new to the Star Trek franchise. So he had all these disparate things to knit together. And I thought he did that beautifully on the set. And as a result, what I'm trying to say is there wasn't a lot of joking around. Not on Star Trek 3, more so on Star Trek 4. That you could tell the energy was different on that set. It was much more playful and jovial and relaxed, if you will. But Star Trek 3, there was some, well, first of all, I think the storytelling was quite serious. But also, you know, somebody was new in their role, and I think everybody was trying to be very businesslike and respectful of the fact that he was now taking on this Herculean task of being both in front of the camera occasionally and behind the camera. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of goofing around, and I frankly don't get Bill's sense of humor. No, he's kind of a sarcastic guy, and his sarcasm is very often at the expense of the other person, and that's a humor I have never understood, truly. The one time, oh God, it was the one time we were on location, and it was at Occidental College, which is just outside Los Angeles, and we were getting the exterior of the building, and I think it was to represent the Vulcan Temple, where the final Fel-Torpan ritual was supposed to take place with Dame Judith, and Kirk said, Bill said, all right, he goes to all of us who are accompanying Spock's body into the scene. He says, let's sing There Ain't Nothing Like a Dame when we go in.
Oh God.
And you can imagine somebody like a Dame Judith Anderson, like she's probably heard that 1,000 times. But we did it nevertheless. It went over like a lead balloon. There ain't nothing like a dame, nothing in the world. You know, I was cringing. Because I thought it was a goofy idea myself. But anyway, I'm madly in love, and have great respect for Leonard Nimoy. Bill and I didn't really connect all that much, But you know what, guys? Do you ever watch these documentaries after the fact that sort of tell the behind-the-scenes stories of making these movies? I didn't realize that Bill actually had another project right behind this one, a big one. And he was probably in his trailer working on the lines and getting, apparently our schedule backed him right up, dangerously so, stressfully so, to his next big project. And where did I see that? Could this have been included in the interviews for the re-release of Star Trek 4 on DVD? I'm thinking maybe that was it, and I don't know that I'd ever watched all of them. Of course, I watched myself. I said, oh my God, what did I look like coming from Cincinnati when I was briefly married and living there after I left Hollywood? So I finally sat down and watched Bill's interview and Leonard's interview, and I think they interviewed Harve Bennett as well. And that's when I learned that Bill had so much more going on at the time than I realized, and I can appreciate he had a lot of pressure, and had to be somewhat serious and removed a lot of the time.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that the photo walks with Nimoy, I got the impression that Nimoy was real friendly with the people. But now when it comes to getting a photo off with Shatner, it was like I could have had my picture taken with a cardboard figure,
Yeah, no, Doug.
Like a block of ice sitting there.
You've probably just beautifully demonstrated the difference between these two human beings. Absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, we didn't know that George Takei was gay. And after it came out, I thought, well, no wonder why he was so friendly at them conventions.
George is friendly no matter what.
Yeah.
The fact that he's gay is just another wonderful thing about him. When I'm asked to sort of talk about my fellow cast members, I describe George. To me, he's like this penultimate citizen of the world. The man is so connected to the people around him, the community around him, the state around him, the country around him. He is a very well-read, erudite human being who is vibrating on like higher levels than most of us, frankly. He tells his own story beautifully. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see his one-man show about his life. It tells many stories and life lessons and there's a lot to be gotten there. And he's just a beautiful human being, really beautiful human being. Yes, Christopher.
I had a question about what was the difference on getting cast for Star Trek 3 versus The Next Generation? Were they looking for something different?
Oh, you're sweet. Well, so as I recall, The Next Generation didn't come out too much long after Star Trek 4. And you guys would always say to me, if I did a convention, when are you going to be on The Next Generation? As if it were my druthers, to just call up the studio and go, yes, I'm available next week. And I'd like very much to do an episode. That wasn't how it worked at all. And so I had to audition, just like everybody else in Hollywood, for The Next Generation. And I did so a handful of times. And I was actually offered a job once. And something conflicted, and I'm exaggerating, but I was nearly suicidal about it. It's like, oh my God, I've been trying to get on this show for so long, and I finally get offered a part, and another job I had been given conflicted by like minutes, and nobody would budge that day or 2 days so to accommodate me. So I had to wait once again and go to more auditions once again. And so when I finally was told I had the part of Talera in the 2-part episode of Gambit 1 and 2, I nearly fainted with relief and gratitude. Again, because you guys, I think seem to think we're like once you're in the club or something, and that you have this this pass, and at least it's not how it worked with me. I think Vaughn Armstrong has that pass. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but I think he's done something like 26 guest starring roles or 30. It's countless. But for me, just to get on The Next Generation was a real a boon and fresh material, new stuff to talk about. But also I was more confident that much later in time. I sort of felt like I got the hang of this Star Trek thing. In the Star Trek world on the ships, people don't they don't slouch. Everything's with a militaristic bearing, and it's small. Everything is small, and so you have to sort of get in line with that to be in that universe. And I felt, those years later, I kind of got a hold of it and brought something to the table. I wasn't so confident like that with Savvik, but I felt better with Talera all those years later, and certainly Patrick. Oh my goodness, if you work opposite Patrick Stewart, your game is going to go up a little bit. I can remember they may have called action once, and he may have said his line, and I just stood there stupefied because I was so arrested by the fact that he spoke. And they're like, Robin, I'm like, oh, sorry, yeah, that's right, I'm in the scene, because you again, I think I lean more toward becoming the audience better than I am the participant in the ring. But yeah, Patrick is, oh my gosh, he walks on water. He walks on water. Here's my take on this acting thing. There are actors up here. There's a small sector of actors, the Meryl Streeps and the Patrick Stewarts and the Ian McClellans and so on. And then there's a huge body of actors that are good, they're solid. I like to think I fall in this category, not extraordinary, maybe now and then you hit a high note, but for the most part, the business hires you because they know they can rely on you, you're going to show up, you're going to do right, you whatever. And then there's some people that we all scratch our head and go, what the hell? Why are they in this project? They can't act their way out of a paper bag and they're not very good. So I knew that I didn't fit into that category. I knew darn well I did. And I think that's one of the strengths you can have when you pursue a creative profession. Know your limitations, know your gifts, know what you can do and can't do. I never pretended to do something I couldn't. And that was always one of the myths about actors. Oh yeah, if they want you to ride a horse, say you can. If they want you to ice skate, say you can, and then you figure out how to do it before you actually get to the job. That wouldn't be me. Patrick is up there. He's the Oscar-worthy human being who just has a gift. He has a gift. I remember they threw a scene at him that wasn't on the schedule that day, and it had, typical of the Star Trek, writing. It had multisyllabic, gobbledygooky terms and so on in the scene itself, and he had it memorized within minutes. He just went to the side and focused, deeply and got it done, got the job done. And I was like, oh my God, that's pretty amazing. So he was a well-oiled machine by the time I got on the set, but he was awesome nevertheless. And they were all like that, by the way. Everybody was very friendly. Jonathan and Michael and Marina and Gates and Brent, they're all very talented, good eggs. When you're a guest on a show and you come into their world, you have to be respectful of how they do things. Do they goof around a lot, or are they really quiet? How do they interact with each other? Does everybody ignore Patrick to give him some space, or because whatever, you pay attention, you watch, and you don't try to do anything that's going to upset that nice energy that they've already created. And one of the things I noticed on other shows is that you come into it later in the, 2 or 3 or 4 seasons in, and people are dialing it in a little bit. They're not working as hard as they might have worked the first season. I kind of felt that way on Scarecrow and Mrs. King when I was a guest. But on The Next Generation as a guest, oh my God, like these guys, they do joke around. They joke around a lot, but they're very serious. They're very about their work. As soon as the camera's rolling, they're in it to win it, and they cared about the story. That's another thing, guys. With weekly to television shows, maybe something in the script went by the story editor or whomever, and now there's an incongruity. There's something that happens that somebody says later in the script that conflicts with something that was established earlier, and it's up to the actor. They're the last person to catch it, maybe. And I remember Patrick. We were shooting the last scene in Gambit where my character, Tolera, has now gained control of the resonator, this thing that gives you omnipotent power, and it only works and is triggered by aggression coming at it. And as I've just gotten possession of it, number one, is that what he's called?
Yes.
And who's Worf?
Yeah.
And then that third dude in a red shirt can come in, beam in, and Patrick is giving them instructions to stand down, drop your weapons, and he's doing it very forcefully. And he does this a couple of times. We do a couple of takes, but the director can tell Patrick's not happy with what's unfolding, and so the director calls a break. And it's the end. I remember it was the end of a week, and it was a Friday, and we're in overtime, and we're working in a smoky environment. They blow fake smoke into the scene, so you're like a little dry, and it's like, oh God, he wants us to stop instead of keep going. Okay, so we all stop and take a break, and Patrick goes and thinks about it and comes back, and he says, he goes, now I know what it was that I wasn't doing right. I was saying the lines with force and with vehemence. And he needed to say the lines very unaggressively and very calmly. And so we reshot the scene, and it all made sense, and then we moved on. And had Patrick not been, as meticulous or committed to the integrity of the story and willing to kind of, put everybody on hold for a minute to figure it out, it wouldn't have been right. It would have been shot. That would have been that, and now you guys would have been at home watching the story, going, yeah, that didn't make sense. So that's Patrick. I'm sorry, I kind of went on and on about it, but Leonard Nimoy, I think, is aces. That whole supporting cast is lovely, and likewise with the Next Generation crew. I don't have a negative thing to say about anybody. And Bill was the only one that was a little bit of a pill. But he had a lot on his plate, and I came to be crazy about him later with Boston Legal. Boston Legal, I thought, was one of the best things on television ever. I was a big fan of Shawshank Redemption, and I felt like the relationship between Bill and the man,
Spader.
James Spader, was that epic a man-man relationship. When they used to have those drinks out on the veranda or whatever at the end of the show.
Right.
Oh my God. Yeah, I get goosebumps thinking about it. The writing was so good, and Bill was amazing. He was amazing in that. Anyway, it's wonderful when the writing meets the right actor, meets the right cast and show, and it's magic. It's magic. How's he holding up?
Pretty good.
Good. I think he's doing great. Scotland, you're doing wonderful, honey. Yeah. What else? Anything else you can think of?
What was the difference between the atmosphere with classic series versus, say, maybe the Next Generation? Because you were also not interacting with the normal cast all the time on Next Generation, and you were doing a lot of guest stars with that alien species with lots of different aliens on board.
Right? No, I'm not following you, Sweet Pea.
Was it like there? I know you said Next Generation was more comedy going on. I don't know
Yeah.
what the classic set was. There difference?
Well, there was comedy on Star Trek 4. I felt the whole mood and was lighter. And again, did Leonard directed Star Trek 4 again?
Right.
3 and 4.
Right.
So he was just that much more comfortable, and it was a much more upbeat film, frankly. So there was, I think, I can't give you a specific example, I apologize. Walter told me keep a diary, and I didn't, like a dope. Walter Koenig. It just seemed to me like everybody was letting their hair down a little bit on Star Trek 4. I was only there for a few days, but that was, they looked like they were having a lot of fun. I wish I could have gone along and had that fun with them.
So what are you doing now? You're in real estate in New York?
I am. I'm in central New York, Cazenovia, just southeast of Syracuse, New York. Little 3,000 person town. It's very similar to the town I grew up in outside of Utica, a little town called New York Mills. When I moved to California, I didn't realize I was doing this at the time, but I remember thinking, oh my God, this is so big. It's so big. Holy cow. And I lived in Manhattan for 3.5 years, but it felt smaller and tighter and more connected. You land in LA and you're looking at it for the last 20 minutes of the flight. It's just people, humanity, macadam and more humanity. And so I just made my world small. I went to the same grocer, I went to the same gas station, I tried to recreate New York Mills, a little textile mill town that I grew up in, right there in the hills of Hollywood. And that's how I made it work for me. I'm not a big town girl, I really am not.
What made you go to Hollywood? How did that happen?
Well, so I'm just a lucky son of a gun. No, seriously, and the pandemic brought these people back to me. So 2 summers ago, the people that I did a little musical with in New York City in 1979, very early 1979. I graduated in 1978, was in New York that fall, had the best little apartment on a 4-level walk-up, little 2-room apartment I shared with another girl. I slept in a trundle bed, and I had a great waitressing job at 81st and 2nd, and I lived at 100 and Broadway, 100th and Broadway.